pearl and black and gold. How you like that? That's all 8 colors.
Say black and gold twice, I think.
They got the black and gold. They've got like basically the sexy shad. Like, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Hook One Pod. Hey, we're here at Hook One Bait and Tackle in the studio. As always, I'm Pete,
And I'm Louie.
and hey, like always, we've got another good one planned for you. First off, we'll adjust the new camera situation. We've got we've got a new camera set up here, so if you notice us like staring down, like I am right now, it's because we've got our computer here. We're not used to that. And if you catch us staring up, it's because for some reason the camera, I don't know, it looks like we're staring over you.
Yeah, we got to stare below the camera, so it's awfully weird to just talk at this fridge over here.
I think it's pretty obvious we suck at this.
It's getting bad.
But somehow as it gets worse, it gets better. The quality is going to be better. Sound quality is going to be a little bit better. And it'll give us room to play around with some things. And Louie called me up actually last night and was like, hey, man, I got this awesome idea planned for you. We got to rip this podcast. So why don't you tell them where this little brainchild came up with and what we're going to be doing today?
So I was listening to another podcast, and they did like some form of this, but not like in depth.
Right.
It was just kind of like a top 5, just anything.
Right.
I think it was like top 5 round objects, to be exact, actually. So we're going to do top 5 walleye baits for the St. Clair area.
Yeah, basically the St. Clair system. I mean, the baits that we're going to talk about today are going to be, they're really our top 5 favorite baits. I'm not going to say they're necessarily the most effective at all times.
Yeah, no, mine
but
are not.
They are our top 5 favorite baits to use. We'll explain a little bit about why we like them so much. And I think what you're going to find out, I honestly, I have no idea what Louie has in his box. And he's got no idea what I've got in my little box of goodies here. And whoever thought, oh, I saw the paddle tails, they're not a part of my list, but they're here. They're my lid. So
are we going to go...
But I think, hang on, I was somewhere.
Okay.
I think what you're going to realize is that a lot of the baits and the techniques that we're going to talk about and that we like to do, you can utilize these anywhere. You can utilize them in inland lakes. You can utilize them on other Great Lakes. You can bring them out here and try them right here in our backyard. I mean, these are tried, tested, and true to us. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
But to us, they're tried, tested, and true. And they've worked on the St. Clair River, Lake St. Clair, Detroit River. We ran them on Lake Erie. Lake Huron, for the most part, are primarily where we fish.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, you can use most of my baits pretty much anywhere.
You want to start or you want me to start? Stop looking at the laptop. The camera's there.
I know, but okay. Are we going starting with number 1? Or are we
starting with 5?
5.
We're starting with 5. We're starting to start with 5. We're going to go count to 1, our very favorite bait. We're also going to talk a little bit about some baits that we really want to try and we're going to put to use. Hopefully you'll see them later on this YouTube channel specifically. But we're going to talk about some baits that we want to try they're getting really popular. It's really hard to keep up, man. Like the walleye world is so diverse. You've got such different fisheries with the Dakotas and the reservoir system, Minnesota with all the lakes. Wisconsin's a little bit more similar to us with like Green Bay, Lake Michigan, Great Lakes type stuff. But then you go back up into the UP, has phenomenal fishing and different ways to target them. So it's always changing, and that's what's so fun about the walleye world is we can kind of see what works for us, what works out here on our bodies of water, but also what doesn't work because there's some things that just straight up do not work.
There's a lot of them, and
yeah.
I feel like I've found quite a few of them lately.
Well, we talk about it all the time. We like to do different things. I get bored of doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
Which is funny when I put this top 5 together, I was like, we'll be a little outside of the box. I don't think I was very outside of the box, but we'll see.
I think I got a couple that you definitely don't have.
I think you're playing out in left field making this stuff up, but we're going to see.
No.
We're going to see. You want to start it off or you want me to start it off?
You
with
go
number 5.
You go first.
All right, I'll go first. So we're going to start out with my number 5 bait. Let me pull up the note card here. Quit looking at the camera. Look at the camera, I mean.
Well, I was trying to figure out what you were doing too.
All right, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing.
Okay.
All right. So number 5 in my list of baits is a classic. It's an open water killer. It's a trolling machine. This color in particular is one of my favorites out here on Lake St. Clair when the water gets a little bit dirty, but we'll bring it out. Boom, the Bandit. This one's a custom painted Bandit by JT Custom Tackle. I'll show you. That one's called Raspberry Jubilee. It's probably better than looking at my face anyway. But dude, I put the Bandit at number 5. I put the Bandit at number 5 for a few reasons. One, there's 2 really good ways to fish this. Obviously, the best way, the most effective way is to troll it behind offshore boards.
Yep.
It works really good. You can target a bunch of different depths. You can target honestly, you can catch a bunch of different species on a Bandit. Like if you're looking to go out on St. Clair and just have like a multi-species day, you just troll some of these Bandits like 25 back behind your board, and you're going to catch walleye, you're going to catch pike, you're going to catch smallmouth, anything that swims is going to bite. Muskie, we catch a lot of them in the fall.
Ton of muskie on
the Bandits. And the reason that I like the Bandit in particular over a lot of the other options, the Husky Jerks are really good, the Bill Lewis baits are really good. They're all good crankbaits. But the Bandit, as well as the flicker minnow, I almost put the flicker minnow in here. I'm interested to see if you have the flicker minnow. By that reaction, I don't think you did. But the reason I like Bandits and flicker minnows so much is they're very, very versatile in the sense you can fish them fast, you can fish them slow, you can use snap weights to fish them deeper, or they do work really well to fish shallow. So my number 5 is the deep diving Bandit. JT Custom Raspberry Jubilee has been a really good bait for us on Erie and St. Clair. Whenever that whenever that water color gets a little tinted, gets a little green, it's a really good bait for us. So there you go. That's my number 5.
Number 5.
I don't even know where to put this thing without making a mess. All right.
Is it my turn now?
You're up, dude. Let's see. Captain Louie's number 5.
See, this one, I feel like I could get controversial.
Okay.
But I'm just in general.
All right. I'm going to give you time to explain yourself.
Okay, I took the Rapala, the floater.
Woo!
But I don't know if it's like size specific or
it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. I you know what's really funny is when I put my box together and I was thinking about the box that you were putting together, I was like, man, nobody's going to pick any whipping baits or any hand lining baits.
That's went out of the box a little bit.
Yes, I mean, dude, I love that pick.
You can whip them, you can hand line them, you can cast them, you can troll them.
Yes.
You can do anything with this bait.
I love that pick. You're 100% right. Guys, cast them off the shore in shallow. It's unanimously the number 1 whipping bait around here. Which still there's people on YouTube like, what is whipping? It's slow right now. The fishing's tough. I promise once it gets better, we're going to be out there. I will explain the whole ordeal. But you're basically anchoring up in the current. And for anyone that like steelhead fishes, you're almost plugging. Anchored up in the current. You drop it back on a 3-way or a glorified 3-way swivel if you're using a shank. And we'll talk about it. But it's a super effective way to catch walleye. You can run that bait hand lining, which hand lining is getting super popular. It really started in the Detroit River. It's made its way here, obviously, because we're not too far away. And this year I was talking with Louie, but we've sold a majority of our hand lining equipment this year as far as reels, weights, leaders. We've sold them to guys over in like Illinois and Wisconsin, to a lot of the tournament fishermen over there. So hand lining is becoming super popular, extremely effective way to catch baits. There's something that I want to try next year with those floaters and doing a little bit of 3-way rigging, but with a rod in your hand. You know what I mean?
I've ran them behind bottom bouncers before.
Yeah, like out in the lake. You don't want to do that in the river.
No.
A $9 baits, that's a little bit more than a $3 crawler harness.
Yeah, you definitely gotta like watch what you're doing. Watch your leader length, watch your speed, watch your graph. It gets a little bit like
specific.
Yeah.
Like
you better pay attention to one rod and one rod only.
Yeah. Yep. Well, why don't you show them one more time? What'd you go? What size even is that? Why don't you just pick a 13 so they could see it?
Well, because I put hand lining as
I love it.
Like my specific.
I think, you know what though, that bait is way too good. The original balsa bait, that bait's way too good not to explain why it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so versatile. And it's really funny because that's one of our best selling baits in the entire shop. Like jigs, harnesses. It probably goes jigs. Well, probably goes bottom bouncers, harnesses, jigs, plastics, Rapalas.
Yeah.
Rapalas. What are you
I
gonna call it?
mean, I call it a Rapala.
There you go.
But guys just call it a Rapala. They don't even call it a floater. That's
Oh,
how.
around here, yeah, the
Yeah.
locals. It's like, do you guys sell Rapalas? And it's like, yeah, like you're not asking if it's a scatter wrap or
No.
whatever. It's an original
It's
floater,
a floater.
the balsa floater, size 11 and size 9. Size 11 is probably the most popular, but size 9s are really underrated.
Size 9s are becoming a lot more popular.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like they are popular. They're definitely the second most popular. Them and 13s. The F13s, the size up from 11s, is really popular as well. It does a good job mimicking that bigger bait fish. But yeah, the floating Rapala, I love that pick. If you can tell, I don't have that one in the box.
I felt really good about it. I'm not gonna lie.
That's a good one.
It was hard to put it at number 5 though.
Was it?
Yeah.
See, and that's like another thing about this that I was really excited about. And I asked you before we got on, like, is this going to be top 5 like effective baits, or is this going to be top 5 favorite baits? And I'm glad that we went our top 5 favorite baits because it's way easier to talk about.
Yeah.
And explain why they're our favorites. And that's why this next one here at number 4, it is one of my favorite ways to catch fish. But as far as effectiveness, it had to slide down the ranks a little bit to number 4.
Yeah.
And that's one of our favorites, the jig and wrap.
Whoa.
I know, man. I've talked so highly of the jig and wrap. We've done shop talk segments on the jig and wrap. We were just out. I had a charter that was dedicated to whipping the jig and wrap, and I love the jig and wrap. So I think the jig and wrap is a super effective bait. We can catch them ice fishing on this thing, and we catch them in the dead of summer. It's very, very reliable. We catch them in the spring when these fish are sluggish, and we catch them in the fall when these fish are aggressive. The jig and wrap is an awesome, awesome bait. Fish it vertical, cast it out. I don't want to spend a ton of time talking on this bait because odds are if you're watching this video, you've seen some of our other ones and you know how I feel about this bait. I love this bait. But that's it. My top 3, dude. They're pretty good. They're pretty effective, and that's what moved the jig and wrap right here. It's a glide. I mean, it's a glide bait, right? Like I personally, I love the jig and wrap. I do really like shiver minnows. They're a little harder for us to get, so that's I don't use them as much.
Yeah.
But I really do love using the shiver minnows. The hyper glides from Acme are really good. The Johnny Darters.
John
Hoyer's made a living on Johnny Darters.
Yeah.
Just won $200,000 slinging swim baits and Johnny Darters. So the Johnny Darter from Berkeley, but these glide baits are really, really good. That's why they're kind of sitting here in my number 4 spot. They're definitely top 5 worthy. But the next 3 are they just produce way too many fish to have this one. My problem with this one, and a lot of the times, a lot of this falls back to guiding, is it's really hard to teach somebody how to use this bait. And it's really hard. We lose a lot of fish on this bait. You miss and you lose a lot of fish on this bait if you're not totally in tune to what you're doing. So that's why this bait took a little bit of a slide. So I'm sorry, jig and wrap. I love you. I really do. But you are number 4.
Yeah. All right. Well, my number 4 looks awfully specific already, or similar. Got the Bandit.
Ooh, Barbie. I like that
Barbie.
color. I like Barbie.
One of my favorite colors. But I mean, I've caught fish in Lake Huron in the current, all the way to Lake Erie, and it produces almost every single time we go out, no matter the weather conditions.
Right before we sat down to record this episode, I got a Snapchat from Joe, and it was him respooling all of his trolling rods.
Yep.
And I was like, dude, I cannot. There's such a special bite in November, December, January, whether you're on St. Clair, Saginaw Bay, Lake Erie. If you can get on that bite, it is so special, and it's so cool to be able to catch those things in the winter, and you fish them. I always make the joke with Joe, like we fish them sun up to sundown. 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Yeah.
You put in an 8-hour day and fish them all day. But I just love trolling those bandits. And honestly, as far as effectiveness goes, it should probably even be higher up than 4 with how good of a bait it is on the
100%.
lake.
Yeah.
But we just don't live close enough to the lake where I think as this segment goes on, you're going to see the baits get a lot smaller.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
we'll
it's
see.
effectiveness, I would have put it at top 3, no doubt.
Yeah, it like I said, it catches a lot of fish. When you're over here on the St. Clair system, it's nice because you can it's like we kind of talked about, you can catch so many other species of fish on this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell everybody a story that when we're out muskie fishing, like me and Frank, we were out for 16 hours in 2 days, man. We put 8 hours a day in trolling muskies and we had one bite to show for it. And it wasn't that we suck, which we do. it, it wasn't that. I mean, we were around a lot of boats and it was just one of those days where muskie, or a couple of those days where muskie were being musky. And, I'm sure the day before was really good. And I'm sure the day after was really good. So, we had a couple tough days, and then Frank goes back to practice. Like he doesn't have a lot of time to fish in the fall. So Frank goes back to practice, and we go out fishing with Joe, and we're trolling bandits for walleyes out there. And we went 4 days in a row, with a fish over 48 inches on a bandit with a muskie, over 48 inches on a bandit. So it just goes to show you that it is a really, really, I don't even know the right word for it, but it's just a really good bait. It's a really efficient bait.
It generates a lot of bites.
It's a big bite generator. That was actually, you're right though. It does. It generates a lot of bites. You get a lot of fish biting and chasing a bandit. Show them the color one more time. That Barbie color is pretty cool. It's like got a little bit of that Wonder Bread shape to it. We got the pinks, the purples, bright chartreuse spot. So
got everything a walleye could ever want.
Yeah, shout out to the bandit.
Yeah.
All right. You ready to keep going to number 3?
Yeah.
You want to go first for number 3?
Yeah, let me look at my list because this is where it gets really close for me. Okay.
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
No, I'm going to go first.
You're going to go first?
I feel really good about this one.
All right, so Louie's going to pull out his number 3. So now we're to the top 3 baits.
Favorite baits.
Top 3 favorite baits on the St. Clair system.
Ready?
Yes, show me.
Hold on, guess.
No.
Okay. I got the crawler harness.
Oh!
I mean, it's...
What?
It is...
What do you have to say about a crawler harness that people don't already know? If you travel anywhere to walleye fish in the entire country and you don't bring a spinner with you, whether you call this a spinner or a crawler harness, you don't bring one of these with you,
you're doing something wrong.
You're just messing up. Go ahead.
I mean, it's getting on a spinner bite it's easily one of my favorite things to do.
Yep.
Have 4 rods on your boat.
Yep.
Just kind of kick back, sit back when nice weather. It's always nice weather during crawler season.
Yep.
And it's when you get on a school of fish, as soon as your bottom bouncer hits the bottom, it's tick, 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 fish. Every single time.
Yeah, I like that pick. I don't want to go too much into it. I'll do my own talking. I'll do my own talking about it later. But that was
it catches fish everywhere you go. If it's a tough bite, you throw a spinner out.
Yeah, my favorite thing, like I said, we'll touch on it a little bit later. But my favorite thing is just how much water you can cover with crawler harnesses and spinners, and you can just fish a lot of water, and you can run it past a lot of fish. You can run different. You can run night crawlers on it. You can run plastics on it. You can run a lot of different things with it to make it really effective. So if you're like I said, if you're walleye fishing and you don't have crawler harnesses or spinners, you're really messing up. It doesn't matter what body of water you're on. Inland lakes, they're good. Great Lakes, they're good. Obviously the most popular way to do it is to troll them. Out here on St. Clair, we like to point the boat downstream. We like to point the boat downstream and troll them, but you can also back troll them, going with the current. And that's kind of the easiest way to do them. Obviously, you control them on open water. I've seen guys hook them up with sinkers and cast them and reel them.
Yeah.
So anything to get that blade spinning is going to produce some bites typically. So that's a great bait. Good.
Yeah.
Good call on that one, bro.
Yeah, it's easily one of my favorite bites that happens throughout the year.
Yeah.
Especially when your arm gets sore after jigging.
Oh yeah. I mean, and as far as like getting kids on fish and putting people on fish that aren't necessarily like fisher people, as they call it, when they show up to the dock, like, I'm not a fisher person, Captain. That's fine, man. We'll pull some bottom bouncers. and then they can kind of learn to look what to see. And then once they learn how to see it, they can put the rod in their hands. They can learn how to feel it. They feel that bite. And then, even if you've never fished before, you can be out there feeling your own bite, reeling in your own fish. It's pretty cool. And the other thing that's really cool about crawler fishing and spinner fishing around our area is with the current always being so fast. You can fish these baits out of really any style boat. Like we see pontoons fishing them, cabin cruisers fishing them, giant center consoles fishing them, 12-foot boats fishing them, kayaks. When we get people coming out with kayaks, I'm like, that's the best way to fish these. If you're here to kayak fish for walleyes, is throw a spinner on with a bottom bouncer and go downstream. So
yeah, it's a really easy technique to coach people with.
Yes, it's not one of those like the jig and wrap where you've got to jig it up really fast, let it down really slow, but let it down slow enough to where you can feel a bite. Like it's none of that.
Like even if they can't feel the bite, you can just look at the rod and tell if there's a fish or if they got weeds or if it's not on bottom. It's pretty easy.
100%.
Once you dial it in, I should say.
100%. Love that pick. All right. My number 3. I think you're really going to like this. Number 3. This comes from guiding. Specifically guiding. What the hell?
I know it.
My number 3 walleye bait. I'm going to do a little hype about this because nobody sees it coming. My number 3 walleye bait for fishing out here, especially out in the channels, especially out in Lake St. Clair. This was a brainchild 3 years ago, and it's been so effective. The drop shot, dude. Look at that. The drop shot. How does that not catch a walleye? You've got the weight here on the bottom. Keeps this bait off the bottom. You've got the worm up top. This is a Berkeley flatworm. I will say as far as baits go for the drop shot, you can run a lot of things. You can run fluke tail baits, worm style baits. We even run straight night crawlers and have a lot of success doing that. I know you being a bass fisherman and spending time out on the lake, I know you can tell the people that this bait has caught a ton of fish. Let's talk about it.
I mean,
I know you like that pick. Don't lie to me.
I do. It's just a minnow imitator. I mean, what minnow doesn't sit a foot off bottom, above the weeds, just kind of cruising?
And that's the thing is like when you look at this bait and you look at, I'll put it right there on the bottom of the screen. You look at where the weight sits and then where the bait sits. It's right in the strike zone. And all these baits float. So like I'm having a hard time right now, but that bait's going to sit like that. The hook's already out ready to hook the fish. The bait's sitting out, floating, doing its action. You can cast this bait, you can jig this bait, and you can drag this bait.
Well, what I like about the drop shot is you can put a 2-inch leader on it if you're fishing rocks, and it's just going to look like a minnow scurrying across the bottom or a goby. Or if you're fishing 2-foot tall weeds, you can put a 2-foot leader on it.
Hang on. Say that again, and I'll show them what you're talking about here. Because we're not talking about the full leader. You're talking about the leader to the hook?
Yeah, like you can change this,
so,
like the length.
I know it's hard to hear. What he's saying is, tell him again.
So you can change the length of the leader from the sinker to the hook. So if it's like 2 inches long,
you'd have something that looks like this. I mean, this is just ridiculous. But this is what he's talking about.
Yeah, so it looks like a minnow just kind of scurrying across rocks. But then if you got 2 foot of weeds,
you could pick it way up. And that's kind of what the point of this was. Like we were fishing some perch grass and some short grass. It's only a couple inches, so we were pulling the weight right through the bottom, and it keeps the bait off the top there. But
it's basically a snagless bait.
Yeah, I want to try it more and put it to work like out there in the main river more because I use it so much in the channels and so much in the summer and late in the spring. I want to put it to use out on the big river. That's one thing that I'm really looking forward to trying. I didn't put it on our want to try section, but it is definitely something that I want to try out and I don't know, just use it more. I think when you pull crawler harnesses, a big thing when you're pulling the crawler harnesses is you're pulling them through these spread out schools of fish. So you're trying to cover a bunch of water as fast as you can.
Yeah.
But I also think it is the bait. I think a lot of it has to do with the night crawler instead of this big minnow profile, because there comes a time of the year where these fish stop eating minnows and they're eating a ton of bugs and like the little eels and stuff coming off the bottom. So I really want to put this thing to use and see. Like I said, we'll tip it with a live night crawler, and it works really good.
Yeah.
But that is my number 3, man. We've caught a lot of walleyes on this. If you've been out on a charter with me, you've probably used this rig, this exact rig. We really catch a lot of fish on the drop shot in general, but it's becoming a walleye favorite of mine. Like I said, you spent a lot of time out on the lake. Joe spends a lot of time out on the lake. You spend a lot of time out there. You're typically drop shotting, and I'm always hearing of you guys catching walleyes out there. It's really big kind of going on in some of the other states like Minnesota, a lot of their inland lakes and stuff. It's just a really good finesse presentation. If a fish is hesitant to eat or doesn't want to bite that big presentation, that you can really downsize your bait. Like you said, you can imitate, they make small fluke tail plastics. So you can run a small fluke tail. You can run an actual goby plastic. You can run worm baits, craw baits.
Yeah.
You caught walleye this morning that spit up a rubber craw.
Somebody's.
So it's like they're eating these baits. It's a way you can try a lot of them. Keep that bait right in the strike zone. Number 3 is the drop shot.
All right.
Top 2.
I'm going again.
Go ahead. I'll go first for number 1.
All right. I got the jigging wrap.
Yeah.
Yep. He's seen it coming. You guys probably seen it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love a good jigging wrap bite. It's so hard to beat when the fish are lazy, sitting on bottom, schooled up,
Yep.
bait everywhere.
Yep.
And you just drop it down, rip it up once, and then the entire school just fires up.
Yep.
Instantly. It's like you just flipped a switch.
If you've got Panoptics, you can see it happen.
Panoptics is probably one of the main reasons it's one of my favorite baits, because you watch everything happen.
Yeah.
Like you go into a spot and it looks like a wasteland. Like there's nothing in there.
Right.
And you rip it up and fish just start hovering off bottom.
It's a beautiful thing, man. It's an aggressive bait. It works in cold water, works in warm water, works on rocks.
You can cast it, you can jig it, you can pitch it.
Yep.
I mean, you can get it where the walleye, you can't get very many things. Like you can't get a bandit, you can't get a crawler harness.
Yeah.
Like you can do a lot of things with it.
100%. 100%.
You can fish it shallow, you can fish it deep, you can fish it anywhere.
You can fish it with live bait. You can throw like a minnow or even those like anise eggs on the treble hook.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good bait. I can't talk enough about it. Mine just had to be stuck at 4.
See, I did way too good on it last year and this year for it to.
Right. Like I said, I feel like my charters really weighed on me on choosing a lot of these just because of the success that we've had out there with them.
Yeah.
And that's why at number 2, the crawler harness. I knew we'd have a couple similar ones. Obviously when you're in a fishery like this and you're fishing it all the time, a lot of the times you're going to use the same tackle, guys. This crawler harness here, I'll actually show you this color. It's one of my favorite ones. This is the Wonder Bread with an antifreeze back, so it's got a bright green back to it. It's been an absolute slayer for us. What else can you say, man? Like, especially with the plastics that they've got coming out to run behind these spinners. So like, if you're one of the guys that doesn't like to use night crawlers and you don't like dirt in your boat or you don't want to be dealing with live night crawlers or the blood or the poop or whatever the deal is, Berkeley, the Gulp SR crawler is an awesome bait to run. It actually outfished worms for a couple times. And you can get a couple different colors. Like they've got the black and gold. They've got like basically the sexy shad, light blue and white. They've got an all white, chartreuse and orange, night crawler, smelt, watermelon, pearl, and black and gold. How you like that? That's all 8 colors.
Said black and gold twice, I think.
They got the black and gold. They've got like basically the sexy shad, light blue and white. You've got a white one. I don't know. We'll find out when I go to edit this if I said it twice. But regardless, they've got multiple colors. And then you've got Northland. They came out with the eye candy plastics, and those are really good baits. We've had a couple customers come in. We don't have those actually here in the store, but we've had a couple customers come in and ask if we carry them. So we're going to look at carrying them next year. But with the plastics that are coming to trail this with, It's just tough. It's really, really tough to beat a spinner and a crawler harness on the.
Yeah, guys have started running twister tails behind them too.
Yeah, they've got the what is it? Beef Fish and Tackle makes the Moxie, and then they also make the Pulsar, which is like a longer bait. The Moxie
Yeah.
has the twisty tail, and the Pulsar has the paddle tail. Um, I actually ran the chartreuse one behind the Moxie with the twister tail. I ran that behind the crawler harness, and we caught a couple fish on it. It definitely wasn't effective, at least that day, as live bait or even the SR crawler, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
All right, man. So we're down to our final bait, our number one.
I have a feeling it's the same bait.
If it's not the same bait, I'm going to be absolutely shocked, to be honest with you. And it's going to seem super basic when I hold it up.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to go, oh my God.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was at with mine.
Is your
Yeah. No.
Is your final bait this?
Yeah.
All right, so on the count of 3, let's hold up what our final bait is. That actually works out really good. To no surprise, guys, if you've listened to the show or if you know who we are, you know how we like to fish, you know where we like to fish, and our favorite bait on all of the St. Clair River, on all of the Detroit River, and on all of Lake St. Clair is, lo and behold, the jig and plastic. It's undefeated. This one specifically, that one you grabbed off the counter.
This is actually almost the exact color I was using this morning, believe it or not.
Was it really?
Yeah.
All right, tell them what you got. Show them what you got. Then I'll show them mine.
All right. It's a
That's a Royal Blitz.
It's a Royal Blitz bait with a purple ice head.
Yep.
Which I was basically using purple ice this morning.
And this one here is one of my favorites. There we go. That is the Christmas tree jig. I love that little bit of red and antifreeze. This antifreeze green that you see here is super popular around here for anything. Like I said, it's on the back of that crawler harness. So this is the Christmas tree. It's the red with that antifreeze green, and then a June bug holographic ice from our friends over at Thump 'em. But the I really just like this June bug ice color a lot. It's like that purple. These purples are always good for us. But you'll notice, so we'll talk a little bit about what makes a jig and plastic so good. Is you can see like the wiggle on these baits. All these plastics are going to have a little bit different of an action to them. So you can just run like our number one bait, and I'm going to put it here. It'll be headlined jig and plastic. And the reason is you can just do so many things with it. Like obviously a jig and a forktail is probably our favorite way to go. You can aggressively fish these. You can fish them really slow. But you can put, a paddle tail or a worm style bait on here, and it's really effective. You can change up the size of the jig head and control kind of the fall rate, if it's going to float down or if it's going to rocket down. There's so much you can do with the jig and plastic. We don't even have the stinger hooks on here because that should be part of the setup. But
it should be, but I wasn't opening anything.
Right. And all of ours are buried in our boat.
Yeah.
But the jig and plastic is just, you can cast it, you can vertical jig it, you can troll it, you can pull it upstream. There's so many ways to fish it, so many areas to fish it. And it really is the number one bait around here. I mean, when you talk about the St. Clair River and Detroit River, you're vertical jigging walleyes, 1 ounce, 3/4, 5/8 ounce jigs with a rubber, often tipped with live bait. I don't know, man. It's the number one bait to me.
It's really, really simple, but I mean, if you're fishing any of the rivers around here, you better have it tied up.
No doubt. And you might as well tell the people what your favorite combo is for the ones that haven't heard at home.
It's a white head with alewife.
With the alewife body, so it's got it's like a purplish black.
Yeah,
very natural. It's a very natural bait.
Translucent black with like a translucent white body.
So we're down, man. We did our top 5. We were different on a few. We were actually different on every single one except number 1. So what does that tell you? It either tells you we hang out too much together, or it's what you should have in your box when you come to fish this area, whether you're fishing. And what's funny about jigging is everybody's like, it has its season. Like jigging season dies. Like it slows down. But again, you can change your bait. You can change the size of your jig head. You can change that stuff to where you're still catching fish jigging. And then typically in the summer, jigging will pick back up before the spinner fishing picks back up.
Yeah.
So Jigger, the jigger fisherman. Jig fishing
Yeah.
is the way to go.
Yeah. Now, what's your bait that you want to try
So
get to know?
So I picked 2.
Okay, good. Me too.
You picked 2?
Yep.
So a part of this segment, guys, is we sat down and we talked about not only our top 5, but we wanted to talk about a couple baits that we personally are really looking forward to trying for a few reasons. One, we see that it has success other places, or it's even had success here, and we just haven't had the time to try enough on our boat. But 2, it gives us the accountability to say, hey, we want to try these things. This is what we want to try. So then when we come up with videos later about us not trying them, you can just shred us in the comments. Just eat us alive and say, you guys have been saying that and you've never got to it. And that's fair.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit about, we'll do one at a time here about the 2 baits that we really wanted, that we're really looking forward to trying out. The first bait that I'm really looking forward to trying out has it's become really popular on the National Walleye Tour. It's becoming very, very popular with forward-facing sonar. I'm really excited to try this thing to kind of not really replace bottom bouncer and spinner fishing, but make it more interactive, rod in hand type deal. And so with that being said, this is a death jig by Walleye Nation Creations. So this here's the death jig. You can see it's got like kind of like the slow death hook here on the back. It's got also the treble hook with the big worm hook. And it's designed, I'll set it down real quick to show you how it's designed to be run. Something like this. So you hook the worm up. What's nice is you don't have to have a long chunk of worm on it. You don't have to have a long chunk of worm on it. You just have to have it hanging barely off the back. The head of it is where all the weight's at. So it's going to get that fish or get that bait down and then get the fish looking at it with the colors. And then it's got the little propeller here too. You can kind of see the little propeller with a little bit of extra flash. So super cool bait, man. I've been seeing a lot of guys sharpshooting fish on live scope with it where they'll pull up to a school of fish. I really want to personally try it in the river so we can almost fish these fish vertical, maybe a little bit faster than the current to get that little blade spinning. But I think that if everybody could have a rod in their hand, still increasing our speed so we can cover water when those fish are biting crawler harnesses, but they're still keying in on that night crawler, I think the death jig's going to be a really, really cool jig as we move forward, especially on these systems and bodies of water. So we shall see.
It's actually funny that was yours because I took that off my list because I had a feeling it was going to be on yours.
Really?
I did.
So you've seen it tied up on my rod a couple.
Yeah.
I've had it tied up on my rod a couple times where I was going to go out and designate trips to do it. One of them was actually, I don't want to get too far into it. It was around a tournament that we had coming up, and I had the water had warmed up insanely fast as we led up to the tournament, and I thought it'd be a really good way to do exactly that, kind of sharpshoot and live scope these fish, because it was before Max Wilson and Tom Boley in particular are the 2 that come up on our YouTube a lot that are really good at sharpshooting with those baits. Like I said, that one's from Walleye Nation Creation. Acme makes one. It's actually called a search bait, so it's meant to, those are sweet because I feel like we're going to be able to fish them a little bit vertically, not too much vertically because of all the hook going on back here. But you'll be able to cast them out. You'll be able to troll them and pull them and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm excited. But what do you got?
So I don't have either of mine here. I came a little bit unprepared on this portion.
It was kind of last minute, but it's all good. I'll drop it right there in the video. It'll come over like right in front of my ugly mug here.
It's very simple. It's a leech and a bobber.
Just slip bobbering?
Just slip bobbering.
I like that.
Jigging weed lines in the summer and just toss that sucker right over top of it and let it go. The current's going to take it. It should theoretically keep it almost in line with your boat.
Oh, yeah.
You might have to recast it a couple of times, but 2 rods in the water,
And it really bums me out that you even brought that up because we've had a slip bobber tied up here on the dock for I don't know how long. And we've been catching like pike and trying to catch steelhead and all sorts of stuff with it. And we're like, we need to bring it out on the water with us. And we're always the ones preaching, go out there and try something new. You got to try something different. It's what you got to do. And here we are, and the problem is there's just so much new stuff to try. Like I've had a ton of fun this year, like with the drop shots. I've had drop shots tied up just about every single day I've went out. and I'm not going to the same spots doing the same thing. I'm trying different things with the drop shot and monkeying around with that, and it's a lot of fun.
It is.
A lot of fun. But I think the slip bobber, especially like without giving away too many spots, like out by the channels would be really good.
Oh yeah.
Right off the channel edges, like if you were jigging in say 28 foot, but had your slip bobber running in like 16 foot. And the other thing is like so much variety on that slip bobber because of where it's at on the channel edge. I mean, you're
Yeah.
going to get your perch, you're going to get your walleye, you're going to get your smallmouth, you're going to get your sheep's head. Definitely something I want to run because you can run it with a 1/4 ounce jig and that could be your weight. You know what I mean?
Or an 1/8 ounce.
Yeah.
Just kind of get it.
Something with a good hook. You want to
Yeah.
get something with a good hook. Sometimes when you run with those smaller jigs, you can get a kind of a crummy hook and you don't want to be losing those fish, especially because 16 foot of water in the weeds, man, you might be able to find some big fish in there. So that's, dude, I love that call. The slip bobber was a great call.
Yeah.
Great call. And my number one, the one thing that I really want to try out the most, I'm watching this bait. As soon as I say this, you're going to be like, oh, I know what it is. I've been watching this bait start booming over in Minnesota, man. Guys are loving this bait. It's a really good bait. It's a really small finesse bait. And it's a very good bass fishing bait.
Okay,
Is this your number one,
we're
dude?
on the same page.
Oh! So it's the Ned rig. It's a super simple bait. It literally looks like a little grub. For those of you guys that have never seen one, it's an extremely effective bass fishing bait for smallmouth, but it's a really, really good walleye fishing bait. It's been taking on the walleye fishing world by storm on a lot of these high pressured lakes. Like I said, like over in Minnesota, but I can really relate it to Lake St. Clair in the sense that they're shallower lakes, they're weedy lakes. It's a lot of bug forage certain times of the year. The Ned rig is an awesome bait, and I'm really excited to try that because we talk about the jig and plastic fishing, and I had a ton of success this year fishing, and it just every time that I brought out all my Ned rig stuff to fish it, it just was a day where we had like horrible winds, or we had fishing that was so good that I couldn't really fish. Like I had to be the net man, that's exactly what I want. But I really wanted to test it out this year, and it's definitely not too late, but I think that's going to shine in like the end of June, July, August.
Yep.
So I think the time is kind of past for it, but we had so much success this year on a 1/4 ounce jig and a flatworm, or a 1/4 ounce jig and a night crawler, that I just don't see how a bait like this couldn't work. That when those fish are feeding on bugs and they're feeding on that larva, and they're on that type of bait, I don't know why that wouldn't be successful. You can fish it really slow. You can actually fish those things super aggressive. What's nice about a Ned rig is they make different baits, so you don't have to use a worm style bait on there. Like if you're not familiar with Ned rigging, you can buy goby style baits that go on these little things. You can buy crawfish baits that go on these little things. So there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, they make Ned rigs with the skirts. Like we've got the ones with the skirts on them. So that, I mean, go ahead, break it down. Why is that? Why are we gonna crack on that?
Honestly, I wasn't doing it more for like what's going on in Minnesota, even though it is like huge right now.
Yeah.
I was doing it for the 3-inch Z-Man craw.
Yes.
And when the walleyes start chewing on craws, they really don't seem to like anything else. Like they get patterned in on crayfish, and like I catch.
That's what happens, I think, to a lot of our fish here in the river. Like I think those fish get patterned on crayfish and bugs so much. Like, I mean, you could go right now up and down the river and there's zero bait in our river.
Zero.
But I went out to this. I was out in the South Channel there, where a little ways out, a couple buoys out, and we were marking giant bait balls. So those bait balls are getting ready to come back. But what happens is all those bait fish leave, and those walleye are still in shallow on the rocks. And what do they have to eat? Gobies and craws.
And I haven't caught very many gobies this year.
The gobies are just getting, I mean, they're too scared to even leave a rock, dude. Everything eats them. It's unbelievable.
It's nuts.
What's been going on.
I think those crayfish baits are gonna be game changer when that comes around next year.
Yeah, and what's really fun about the river specifically is like you could fish that a lot like how we fish tubes, as far as like just pulling them.
Yep.
Like just drifting with the current, maybe using your trolling motor a little bit to find that right speed. But for the most part, you can just pull those baits. You're essentially trolling, and it's simple to fish. It's really fun to get those bites and fight those fish.
I've caught a lot of walleye bass fishing in the river with those baits.
With the Ned rigs,
Yes.
yeah.
And they chomp it. They hit it hard.
I mean, why wouldn't they? Realistically, when they're feeding on grubs and they're feeding on that stuff, it is the perfect bait. And that's what I mean. Like, I don't necessarily want to try it because of what's going on in Minnesota, but what you're seeing over there is like the validation of it is like, oh, you can fish these walleyes hundreds and hundreds of different ways. And when you really need to finesse them, the drop shot has been super successful. The Ned rig is going to be another bait, I think, that is super successful because it's a small bait, a natural bait. That when these fish are picky and they're really picky about what they're eating because of, maybe they just don't want to chase shiners because all these bugs that they eat, the bugs aren't dying and sinking in the water. That is happening, but a lot of these bugs are hatching on the bottom, coming up to the top, and that's when they're eating them. So yeah, man, I think it's just going to be a really good bait. I'm really excited to try it out. And, man, I think that about does it for our favorite baits and the ones that we really wanted to try out. I'm looking forward to it. But you had a really good idea when you called me yesterday to set this whole thing up. You're like, I got a great idea. This was the great idea. Top 5, great call. Better idea, guys. We want to hear your top 5. Louie's like, I want to see in the comments what other people, what they like to use and what they think is going to be something fun to try. So, I mean, maybe not your top 5, but what do you guys like to do? What's your number one confidence bait to use out there? And what's one thing you want to try and maybe get a little better at? Is it throwing around Ned rigs? Is it pitching around search baits? Maybe it's pulling spinners. Maybe you're a jig fisherman and you're like, pulling spinners is boring, but once you learn how to do it, catching a 5-man limit of walleye is never usually boring.
Yeah, exactly.
So, guys, let us know in the comments below. What do you really like to use? What's your confidence bait? What's your number one go-to? And what's something that you want to try out? But other than that, what else? I mean, what else you got? I think I can guess.
Just like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share, and subscribe, guys. We can't thank you enough for where we are right now, but we're not even close to where we want to be because we're on our way to the freaking moon. We're not going to stop till we get there. So please like, share, and subscribe. It doesn't cost you guys. I'm pretty sure it's free to subscribe, isn't it?
Doesn't cost you a penny.
Huh. There's not many things in this world that are free that are good quality.
This is one of them.
The Hook One Pod. Check it out here. Tell your friends. Tight lines.